A player that you might see, guys, might make the roster. Speaking of that, roster work, Isiah Williams. Isiah Williams looked pretty good. Another game, we led the team in receiving yards. And this is a guy that Dan Campbell talked about. I want to actually play a clip that Dan answered a specific question about him, but he is someone that could make the roster easily, but it just depends what they're looking for. And we'll listen to Dan on this because I think Dan puts it very, very well and kind of what he's looking for. And I want to get your guys' opinion on what he meant and what you think will happen with Isiah Williams. But here's Dan Campbell. This is credit to the Detroit Lions on Isiah Williams.
Look, we always put stock into the guys that are making plays, and he does. He is making play. Now those are, that's in the slot, which is where he really, that's where he excels. That's where his game is really is suited for, and he's made the most of it, and that's what's hard a little bit is like, man, he is a football player. He is making plays, but we got Saint, we got Leaf, and so where does that fit, And some of it may need to be, well, can we put him outside? What can you do at Z? Is that a possibility? Can he survive out there? But I know this, every challenge he's had, he's stepped up and made plays, and he's another one of those guys like Strickland on the defensive side. You give him an opportunity and he finds a way to make a play. So he came up big again. Can't deny it.
Hey, Isiah Williams coming up big, but he is a slot more so. And Dan said maybe he can play a little bit outside. You were talking about this earlier, Lucas, and I thought you had a great comparison with how they can make it work with who they have currently. Because I get what Dan was saying, but there is a way to make this whole thing work with Isiah Williams. There is.
Yeah, I mean, to start off, Isiah Williams is a lock to make this roster. I will be very disappointed, even if he's on the practice squad. Like, in my opinion, he has been – you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Jamison Williams, and Khalif Raymond. This offseason, Isiah Williams has been that guy. I understand he's a slot, but okay, he's a slot. He's a little bit taller. I comped him to Tyler Boyd. But if you look at a team down in Miami, they have the Detroit Lions, who motion the most in the league, and the Miami Dolphins motion the second most in the league. Run first team. If you look at their wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, OBJ, and Cedric Wilson. Where's the X wide receiver in that? OBJ, slot guy. Tyreek Hill, they can put him at the X, but you use him to push the field vertically. Jamison Williams. And then you have Jalen Waddle, speedster, but another slot guy. So when you look at how Ben Johnson runs his offense, how Mike McDaniel runs his offense, all the Lions really need at that X spot is a guy that can block, run a slant, run a hitch. When your number is called, just make a play, because you talk about Miami, they have Odell Beckham. The Lions don't have an Odell Beckham, but the Lions have Sam Laporta. So when you look at that, the Lions offense, I honestly like it more outside of Tyreek Hill, and I'm really not that concerned about that X spot, because as far as Isiah Williams, the Lions love killing teams over the middle of the field and play action. That's exactly what happens. If Khalif Raymond gets hurt, if Amon-Ra St. Brown gets hurt, I am fully confident, even if it's week 2 or 3 with Isiah Williams being out there, because he's a guy, when you watch him in the preseason game, the only thing that he really needs to do is hang on to the ball better. He fumbled on the punt return, and then he got tackled late out of bounds. It wasn't a fumble, but the ball went loose on the sidelines. If Isiah Williams can just correct that a little bit, he's a guy that can be playing in the NFL for a long time. Everything that he does is just polished. He's not a guy that is overly athletic. He's not overly strong. There's nothing that's really jumps off the screen, but he does everything right. And I think with the timing of this offense, Isiah Williams, he could be a guy that goes and gets this offense 200 to 300 yards this season. I think that's exactly what you want from the 4 or 5 position. Because, I mean, they even talked about it. Like, you could run Amon-Ra St. Brown on the outside. He ran 43% of his routes on the outside last year. Jamison Williams on the outside. Then you have Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, Jahmyr Gibbs. You can also move Amon-Ra St. Brown on the outside, Jamison Williams on the outside. And then now Jahmyr Gibbs is in the slot, which the Lions have talked about for a long time. That's they want to do with him. They want to make him an offensive weapon. So I think there's a lot of possibilities for Ben Johnson to approach this personnel, even if they don't have a true X. They just need a guy that can go out there and block.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in lockstep with Klotzy. I put it out Saturday that what he did Saturday, like right after the game, it was just, this kid is like 80-something yards. You know, he had the return for the punt return to set him up to go get a field goal for Jake Bates to win the game. Like, this kid, like Klotz, remember the Maurice Alexander? You're like, this kid needs it's turned over to Isiah Williams now. Like, Maurice Alexander has played himself out of a spot or fighting for a spot, and Isiah Williams is a guy who's played himself into one. Dan said he came out last week, said, hey, someone needs to step up, a wide receiver. We need to, like, someone needs to show us something. And it feels like that was Isiah Williams. Like, you're still going to, like, I think they're still evaluating. I think come Saturday, there's going to be, maybe someone else steps up, and now you're sitting there and like you want it to be a hard decision for them. I think Isaiah Williams, I'm in the boat right now to where they keep 5 wide receivers, and I think Isaiah Williams is one of the 4 or 5. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then and that's where I don't really care. Like, and I get Dan saying that, hey, he's a slot guy, and that's tough because you have Khalif and you have Gibbs, obviously, who's going to be in the slot at points, and St. Brown, who can be. So, like, you have those guys, but I think if they're looking for a true X or someone, a bigger body, all right, that's going to be your 4th or 5th guy. Like, if DPJ, like, I don't know what DPJ is doing, but maybe they go out and find someone else to be able to do that. Or if Darius Fountain shows up on Saturday, like, I don't know. I still think there's like a battle going on, and I think what Isaiah Williams did yesterday put himself like a case, like, hey, like, I will produce if you guys need me. That was shown. Like, hey, numbers called, I'll produce, and his number wasn't called really last week, and this week it was called, and the kid produced. So, like, I think you have to put him on the roster. You have to say, like, hey, this is going to be someone who's going to like give you something when his number's called. He might not be a starter or anything, but if someone goes down or you need just someone to fill in, Isaiah Williams will do it. And I wouldn't be shocked this week if Dan and them put him in a different position to like move him around to see what he can do.
Right.
You might see a little bit of a different Isaiah Williams on Saturday. So if he can do that, he will solidify a spot on this roster. I just think there's still a battle going on, like DPJ, Caden Davis, and Darius Fountain. Like, maybe I thought about this today. Like, maybe all 3 of those guys aren't it. Like, maybe, yeah, I know Caden Davis made
all just cut.
Well, like, the thing is, like, I know Caden Davis made a big time play, and he's been really good in camp. But like, to the level of like, hey, can you go out get there and get someone that's better than Caden, Darius, and DPJ right now? You probably could. Like, there's probably guys out there who are. I've seen people all over Twitter the last 24 hours just spamming, Lions fans spamming different players that are available or for via trade or guys who are going to get cut. And it's just like, we've been going through this battle. Like, Isaiah Williams is literally the only wide receiver the last 2 weeks, even with Hendon Hooker or Nate Sudfeld, that has really been like, yep, that's the dude that should be on the roster. And I like, out of DPJ, Darius Fountain, and Caden Davis, at this point, 2 out of the 3 of those guys potentially could be cut off this team. And then, like, I don't know. It's such a weird. I think this wide receiver situation going on with the Lions, I know we have our top 3. I just think it's one of the more weird situations. And, like, I just cannot get a grasp on what's going on. Cannot.
It sounds like from Dan, they really want DPJ to work out. Like, they want this man to work because he does really fit what in Darius Fountain, another one, like, fit what they do need, which is like a true, outside, a true X. But to what Lucas just said, which he makes a great point, maybe they don't really need one. Also, if you have J-Mo and Amon-Ra who's capable, I guess you just look at it. You do want guys that are capable of playing outside, and maybe Isaiah Williams can do that. I know when we talk about slot receivers, and if you don't mind adding slot receivers, there's a guy out there named Hunter Renfrow that I would not mind. If you're talking about a guy playing in the slot, like if we're just going to go with Amon-Ra outside more so than playing in the slot, that's a guy that has played a lot of football, produced, and knows how to get open consistently. But to go back to Isiah, I like Isaiah's chances to make this roster. I mean, he's outplaying every other wide receiver in that mix right now in preseason. I know practice is practice, and you're seeing in training camp, Darius Fountain make a lot of plays, and DPJ has not been playing well. But it is going to be interesting. Like Isaiah Williams is a guy that we talked about, another guy that we talked about last week. If he were to get cut like a Brandon Joseph, he would get signed immediately. Isaiah Williams is the next, like he would be gone within a heartbeat. Someone would pick that man up. I mean, he got 250,000 guaranteed money as an undrafted.
It was like the biggest one of the offseason, I think.
Yeah, like the teams are. I'm sure there were teams that were interested in him, and he chose the Lions. So it's going to be a tough decision, man. But if they want to go the route what Lucas said, like what the Miami Dolphins do, I wouldn't mind that at all. But if you're going to go that route, add Hunter Renfrow. Like if you're playing a guy in the slot, that dude wouldn't cost a lot of money, and he would love to come play with Jared Goff this offense. One of the best route runners, and he's not signed. It doesn't really make any sense, honestly. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Bobby Trees too.
Bobby Trees, yeah. I just don't see a world where after like Isiah, what did he had like 120, 130 all-purpose yards on Saturday. Like there's not a world, a guy that goes out there, UDFA, where you give that signing bonus to, and he finally shows like, hey, I can produce. There's not a world out there that he doesn't make this roster. Like I do not see it.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I saw him, like in the first couple plays he made, I was like, this kid's like he he's shown enough. Like this he's good. And like that's like a developmental guy. If maybe you go get a Renfro and you keep Isaiah Williams and you go, hey, we have Isaiah Williams on the back burner here, and this kid's gonna be like come whenever his opportunity shows up, this kid's gonna be a dog. And then think about next year, like you're gonna keep growing. Like this kid's gonna keep getting better and better and better. Brad just keeps finding a way to find guys like this. He feels like one of those guys.
I would be really surprised too, even with like the first month of the season, like if they don't bring somebody in just for competition reasons, like especially when injuries start occurring, like there's going to be guys, I know people are dropping in the chat. I don't know if this is going to be true, but like John Mechie, David Bell, guys like that, like especially guys that are like, you look at teams that just added wide receivers and they got kind of younger guys on rookie contracts that haven't produced. Like there's going to be those type of guys getting released, especially during the season. So I'm willing to bet if they don't make a move before that season starts, they will eventually.
Yeah, and like the Dan Campbell comments, that makes me feel like they're already looking, like they're out looking. Like him being like, yeah, well, he's a slot, and we're trying to look for this. We need to see if he can do that. Like for me, like you said, Jeff, like they want DPJ to work out. I can guarantee you Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have been on the phone already, like trying to figure out who's going to get cut and what players are going to be open and talking to agents and figuring out things. Like I just can't see a world to where you've gone through this position battle. I remember last year I said after Saturday, you're going to know whether you hit the red button or not when it comes to the wide receiver room as well. Just like the backup quarterback, like you're going to know. Now you know. Isaiah Williams, and then there's no one else at the moment where you're like, yep, he's a lock.
And I'm genuinely asking because again, I was at a wedding, was not able to watch the game, had to rewatch some of it on Sunday. What's going on with Darius Fountain? Like, give me like your perspective, Boone, on that. Like, I'm actually genuinely asking. Like,
it feels like if you watch some of his plays back, like he's getting open a bit. Like he's open. I don't know, but like when the ball comes his way, he's made the plays. He's had 2 catches. I don't know how many targets did he have. I could check real quick. But
he had 3 targets, caught 2. So
caught 2, yeah. So and the one target was the Hendon Hooker pass over his head, that was Hendon Hooker's miss was to Darius Fountain. So like when the ball came his way, he caught it. It's just he hasn't been getting the rock. They haven't really taken in many deep shots, and like especially with like Sudfeld, you're not really going to get those opportunities. I feel like it's worrying, but it's not. Like if Dan's seeing it in camp, then in training camp, just like how the starters aren't playing. But I personally would have liked to see a little bit more Darius Fountain.